Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to the DFR podcast. Potentially a new name coming in the future. We are doing a NASCAR recap show podcast with Matt Weaver and myself, Ryan Larkin. We're hoping to jump into the space, see where it lands, see if we can
It's
do
a
something a little
science
bit.
experiment. We are doing a real-time science experiment. I have no idea what I'm doing. I think you do, but
Little bit.
what you're about to watch is a big mystery. We don't know what we're doing yet.
Yep, that's the best way to put it. Is literally trial and error for us a little bit here. But Matt, it's been dying to do a podcast, I believe, to get his thoughts out after the race. He goes to the racetrack and he's like, geez, I have all these thoughts to go out. And I like doing podcasts. I like talking NASCAR. So I figured it'd be a good opportunity for us. So we're going to give it a go and see how it works out. If it's a one and done, so be it. But if this is something that really works out, I'm excited for it. I'm excited to try out the science experiment and see if it explodes in our face or if we hit a home run. So, Matt, you were at the track today. What'd you think? How was it? What are your thoughts on the race today?
I'll put it this way. I have had this kind of evolving relationship with the Charlotte Motor Speedway Roval, in that and I was around back then too, but when Marcus first started talking about this concept, I actually was into it because at the time the old generation of car was not particularly great on intermediate tracks, super good on short tracks and road courses. At the time, we couldn't go do North Wilkesboro; that was kind of far away, and so I was okay with it. And then the next gen, and I enjoyed the racing. I thought it delivered those first couple of years, 2018, 19, 20. I thought it delivered what they intended for it to do. Then the next gen comes out, and obviously it's a work in progress on road courses and short tracks. The super wide tires, the aero, the horsepower to weight ratio. I had started to give up on this concept.
Yep.
It's so good on intermediates, and we have this conversation every year. It's like, man, you watch the Coke 600 and it's like, why are we not doing that in the playoffs? Why are we not doing more of that? We're going back to Joliet next year, and so we are going to do some more of it. And
Super
so
excited for that.
And so I started to give up on it. And then you know what? I watch a race like today. I'm back on board the Roval train. I think I'm happy that it's back next year. We got to see what the championship format is, but Goodyear just continues to do things they should not be asked to do. The car hasn't fundamentally changed. Horsepower has not fundamentally changed. That was all Goodyear. That was all this tire combination. And I loved the race, and I just thought it was a joy to watch, a lot of drama, a lot of things to talk about.
Yeah, for sure. And it got swept under the rug at Watkins Glen, but this tire fall off was there as well. And, SVG just crushing the field kind of swept it under the rug. People didn't really pay attention, but you saw Chase Elliott really fall off there at Watkins Glen. You saw Ty Gibbs just fumbling away a race because of tire fall off. And I didn't know if that was going to be something they could replicate, but they did. It's the exact same thing here today. And I thought it put on a fantastic race with a lot of strategy. We haven't seen strategy because of tire fall off outside of a good maybe Richmond or Darlington race in I feel like 10 years. Like this felt like the most tire fall off that impacted a race and strategy that I've seen in so long, that I was so thrilled by it. I thought it was super entertaining. It put SVG in positions where Larson could pass him, right? Like there was racing happening all over the field, but I still see some people not happy with the event, not happy with the Roval, or I'm wondering where you stand on it. Because to me, this was a good race. It accomplished a lot in terms of entertainment. Then you have the whole playoff aspect, which, the Chastain move strikes a bit of craziness or overreaching that I don't
Look what he did,
love.
except he didn't.
Yeah. But also, we were following that for 90 minutes, I feel like. Logano versus Chastain, it's something that you were super tuned into because it was going to have serious impacts on the year. So part of me is just sitting here like, that was a home run race. Yeah, I'm not seeing people in love with it. I'm not seeing people excited about it.
Let's backtrack for a second, right? So we talk about the tire fall off, and I think, we have seen Goodyear produce a tire that has an okay amount of fall off of like incremental wear. And the problem though, so this was like 5 seconds of overall fall off. But the problem is
Mhm.
that generally everyone's got SMT, everyone knows what they're doing, everyone knows how to optimize their fall off, and they all fall off at the same rate. And so it doesn't fix the biggest problem that this car has, which is the parity. If everyone's
Mhm.
running the same speed and everyone's falling off at the same rate and everyone's pitting at the same time, split the stage, come in together within a span of 1 to 4 laps, and it's about can you get down pit road first and get the undercut, and get track position that way. It's not really accomplishing the goal, but there was so much of the tire fall off today that
Mhm.
the strategies were all across the board. That last
Right.
stage, you saw some people split it in two, three stop strategy.
Yep.
And so what you see is that it creates speed differential throughout the field. And when you get speed differential, you get contact. You get people locking up the brakes and running into each other and bouncing off of each other. And I can't believe that we've asked Goodyear to do this, but I'm even more surprised that we're starting to succeed. Now, by the way, I want to be clear. I still think we need to look at horsepower. And for short tracks and road courses, I think we need to take off the underbody completely.
Yeah.
It should be overbody aero, not underbody aero. Years down the road, if we still have this car, knock on wood, I think we need to go to a narrower tire for short tracks and road courses. But I will tell you, this starting this summer, the short tracks and road courses are starting to get close to what I think we had with the previous generation of car, and this race delivered.
Yeah, I completely agree. The underbody things, something I was having a conversation with a friend about because I'll watch a Mazda Cup race at Martinsville and it'll entertain me. There's no downforce. It's not. I feel like when I look at Martinsville or certain tracks, you don't need all that underbody downforce, and you can just run anything there. And so that's always been a conversation I've been interested to hear. But even New Hampshire a couple of weeks ago, I thought was a really good race. We talk about the car not being good at certain tracks, or that I thought that a mile short track essentially. I put that in kind of the struggling tier of tracks. Gateway and Phoenix not being liked by most fans, but I thought New Hampshire was really really good. And obviously, there's the multi groove aspect of that track that is probably why that track worked. But I do think the more tire fall off is a part of that too. Goodyear is definitely dialing into a window here, which I didn't think they can get to. Honestly, I didn't think this was going to be possible, and they have found it. And they're not blowing tires. They're falling off exactly how you would want tires to fall off. So I think that's a slam dunk. But let's shift gears if you don't mind. I'm really curious. We haven't really touched on Chastain versus Logano enough for me. This is a playoff cutoff race, right, to the round of 8. And we saw some more of the high drama, but also some of the shenanigans that come with the playoff situation. Where are you at in terms of the whole Chastain situation? Are you excited? Because he had 2 huge mistakes. Not knowing how the exit pit road is pretty egregious. And then also the speeding penalty. But you also have that late race, last lap move on Hamlin that causes another wreck that's kind of wild and ridiculous to me, but it's also what they have to do. So what do you make of the whole situation, the playoffs, the cutoff race, and all of that in totality?
I think that I'm about to kill this podcast 9 minutes in, that people are going to
No.
hear this next thing that I have to say. And it's like, this is not the show that's for me. It's not what I want. F Weaver, I'm out. But, 2 weeks in a row, we've had racing dynamics that highlighted the positives of the playoff format. And listen, I want to be I'm pro playoff. I've been very clear over the years. I think we need to fix the final race, maybe make that a 3-race round, because I think that
Yeah.
this format gets everything right up until the end, and the sample size is way too small. But I think the 4 drivers is good. But that's neither here nor there. What I enjoyed about last week is you had 4 or 5 guys that winning was the most important thing in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And we saw that in the decisions that Bubba made with Christopher, and that could have changed his situation for this weekend. Denny and Bubba, and it was important for Denny to get to 60, but to also get 5 more playoff points because he's been locked out in the round of 8 the last couple of years. And so then we get to the Charlotte Roval, and listen, Bubba, there was a pathway for Tyler to make it in on points, and Tyler brought this up too, so I'm not speaking out of turn. Tyler says in hindsight, maybe they should have been more aggressive, focusing on stage points and trying to win the race. They sold out from the beginning to try to keep up with SVG and get in that way. And I think that if they could do this race over again, seeing that Joey Logano had just a 15th to 20th place car, there was a pathway there for him to get 14 to 15 stage points, as good as they were early and having the track position they had. But that's neither here nor there. They sold out to try to go get the win, and I understand why. But then we get to the middle stages of the race, and it becomes clear the points battle is between Ross and Joey, and it goes back and forth. I mean, Ross is beating himself up tonight. Like, we talked to him after the race, and he's really down on himself. And I'm not saying that he should be, because he's way more talented at anything he does than I am. But I'm saying that it's fair for him to put the responsibility on himself, because there was the mistake in turn 7, there was the speeding penalty, there was the not turning left on pit exit. So many things cost him a chance to make what happened on the last lap a moot point. But I just thought that, getting to that last corner, what does he have to do to try to get that spot back? I don't know that we're talking about anything if this is the Latford system. It's another 16-second Shane Van Gisbergen win, and there's 2 or 3 championship guys in a Latford style system. And I understand what Brad tweeted, and I thought that Brad's take was fair, Brad Keselowski. But I just think that I'm a storyline guy. I'm a writer. I love telling stories, and this race produced stories up front, SVG versus Kyle Larson, and it produced stories in the middle of the field, and I thought both of them were super and equally compelling.
Yeah. I mean, I've been a season-long guy because I feel like it's the most pure way to reward a champion. I definitely think, there's a whole playoff conversation that could be had about 3 races, 4 race, final round, whatever, 10, the chase, whatever. I don't really want to get into that now because I don't want to piss everyone off 12 minutes into the podcast.
Me too.
But I do think a lot of what you say is true. Is this race had storylines and it delivered on the storylines, and I don't think we lost any legitimacy within the particular race or the event or the guys advancing, for sure. But I did have a question I want to ask, and I didn't bring this up, and you may know, and we can move on pretty quickly, and this won't matter. But do you, as someone who's at the track or covers the sport and everything, do you know what happened to AJ Allmendinger on the last lap?
I do not, actually. I didn't realize that was a thing. What happened?
It's not a thing. No one really knows. It's a thing to me because no one knows. So basically, he was marching down Daniel Suarez to pass him for 7th on the last lap. He wasn't going to get there. Suarez overcooks the last chicane, was going to miss it to where he would have to come to a stop, kind of cuts right at the last second and spins Allmendinger out for 7th place. My issue with this, and this is my issue with the playoff situation and focusing only on the race winner, is 7th place is pretty high in the running order. There's a lot going on there. TV not once covered it, mentioned it, knows about it. You're in it. You don't know about it. You have no idea that it happened. And I think one of the fundamental issues I'm having with today or the playoff system or TV coverage or whatever it may be is we're not telling the story of everyone else. We're not telling the story of the other 33 guys in the race. And so while I do like the Chastain Logano aspect, I do like what I saw from that playoff aspect. I do actually enjoy it. I think it can be, if the way we rewarded the champion or, crowned it was better, I think the playoffs could work. But
yeah, hold on. You make a fair point. I just caught up on it. So I saw it and I understand. I think one of the biggest flaws with the playoff format that we have right now, and it's fair, is that when you have such a wide net of storylines, playoff contenders, the round of 12, there's 12 of them. A month ago, it was 16. I hyper focus on those 16, then 12, then 8, right? And sometimes things fall through the cracks. But also when it's the last lap, last corner like that too, I think something like that could happen in any scenario. It's also a byproduct too. If we're in a Latford system style scenario, we're going to focus on Suarez versus Allmendinger, guys who are outside the top 15, top 20, 25 in points. It's not. It's like, do you like your apples or do you like your pineapples, right? Like
Yeah.
in terms of storylines. But it was the last lap, and so what happens is those of us who cover the sport, we all leave the media center or wherever we watch the race. I like to watch in the infield downstairs so I can run to infield care or whatever. Some people like to watch upstairs, but we tend to miss the last 2 or 3 laps depending on what track it is because
That
we
makes sense.
run
Yeah.
to pit road.
Mhm.
And now Charlotte has that big, I call it the Megatron video board. But I don't know the TV focus. Did the broadcast focus on it?
Broadcast didn't know happen.
Okay.
They didn't show
That's
it. They didn't know.
probably a failing of the broadcast.
Yeah. And that's more what I'm kind of getting at. And don't get me wrong, this is F1 had the same issue. Lewis Hamilton lost his brakes with 2 laps to go and was riding around cutting every corner. F1 broadcast didn't even cover it. So it's not just a NASCAR thing. It's not just, but I have an issue where I feel like if they're not winning, and I love the winning in, this is where it's weird, is I like what Austin Dillon did at Richmond, where he goes and gets a win, puts a beating on them, and it's like, here we go. I've succeeded this year, or whatever you want to call it. But I want us to talk about guys who finished 4th if they have a really good day, and that's the one thing I think is missing. And instead, we're talking about guys that finished 20th, and that's kind of weird too.
And that's to Brad's point, right? Like I saw his tweet earlier tonight, and it's a valid one that I take, and I think that this is all a byproduct of NASCAR's obsession with parity, right? Like it's not just the playoff format. I think what Brad said is fair, but we also have a spec car. Everyone's driving the same equipment. We have spec SMT. We all drive the same way. We have spec personalities to where, we have to be super careful about what we say to the press. Denny's having to watch his words very carefully too, because he can't fully admit that, I was not going to pass Ross because of trying to keep the 22 out of the next round. And, in a different scenario where Ross wipes out Denny, that might be an ass whooping. We can't do that either because NASCAR fined Ricky Stenhouse Jr. the same amount of money for Hendrick Motorsports modifying a greenhouse 2 or 3 years ago. And so this is a much larger conversation, I feel like, than the playoffs. It's this obsession with parity. And when you pasteurize, homogenize, and sanitize everything and everyone for your pleasure and entertainment, this is what you get. You get 30 of the same people driving the same cars the same way.
It's true. It's very true. Yeah, I mean, I guess we're probably diving too far. I don't know.
It's becoming a playoff. It's becoming a playoff conversation and not a Roval conversation. But here's the thing. Here's the thing. This is important. Like right now, Regan Smith put out the tweet a couple of hours ago and said, tire fall off, passing, playoff drama, excitement. Shane and Kyle trading paint. Like, if you're a NASCAR fan, what do you want from this race? And he's got like 250, quote retweets of people fussing about the playoff format. And I'm not saying I'm not telling a fan how to fan. Fans have the right to fan however they want. But this is what happens. We try to have a conversation about the race that we saw today, and this overarching playoff versus Latford debate is seeping into everything. We can't talk about, the racing product, the tire fall off, driver personalities without talking about this playoff format, because this is the topic that we can't get away from until NASCAR, whenever they decide they're going to do it, say, this is what we're doing next year. And then we can move on.
What's going to happen is they're going to do what they're going to do what fans don't want, and then the fans will just be even more pissed off.
But I think right now the vitriol is extra spicy, because I think right now they think they do have a chance to influence NASCAR. NASCAR has expressed a willingness to move a different direction, and so I think that you give that audience a chance to have some say so, and they are extra loud,
Yeah.
and because they're trying to get the thing that they want. Problem is NASCAR fans are not a monolith. There is no one thing they want. I know they're going to say, "Oh, we all want the Latford system." That's not true. But I think if NASCAR comes out eventually and says for 2026 we're doing X, there will be 2 months of arguing about it. But then once they accept whatever the new status quo is, then we'll go back to arguing about the things we've always argued about. Because we didn't argue about this until NASCAR said, "Hey, we're starting a competition playoff committee to
Right.
debate this." Like, people were mad last November, but when NASCAR opened the door to say, "Hey, we're talking," a stampede rushed through it.
Right.
You shut that door, lock
You're
it.
right. Yep.
You're going to hear some for a little bit, and then people are going to give up once the door doesn't budge.
That makes sense. Yeah.
But it's
No,
so
you're
frustrating because, like, we saw a really good Roval race, and we should be talking about, hey, do we need to keep doing the Roval? Do we need the Bank of America 500? But instead, we're talking about this damn playoff format stuff, and we're going to do it for the next 4 weeks too because we're not going to escape it.
Well, let's talk about what you just asked then. Should we stay? And you kind of touched on it in the beginning of this, but should the Roval stay, or do you want to see the fall Charlotte race go back to the Oval, which obviously should put on a good show with this car, given everything we've seen? Where are you at? Are there too many road courses, or what do you think? Because there's a lot more to unpack other than just swapping one race back to an Oval.
Yeah. So listen, I was a big fan of the Chicago Street Course, and
Mhm.
I hate that we're losing it. I love Chicago. I'm a big Cubs fan. I am agonizing, living and dying with Cubs playoff baseball right now. Um, but knowing that we're not going back to downtown Chicago, and as a result, we're going back to Joliet, it makes me feel less urgency to feel like we need to go back to the Charlotte Oval in the fall because I think we are adding another intermediate track. I can't believe I'm saying this, but like, how do we get back to Kentucky? And I hated Kentucky with the old car.
Yeah.
I hated going to Kentucky. I hated driving into Kentucky. I thought the facilities were not especially great. But now, man, I watched the Cup car, and the Xfinity car is good everywhere. And I'm like, that would be a really good weekend now. I don't know where SMI would take that date from. I'll say this. I think we have too many road courses. And I say that as a pro road course, really
Okay.
pro street course guy. I think having 6 or 7 is way, way too
Right.
many.
Right.
And I also think that we need to have fewer and fewer duplicate races on the schedule too. I think,
100%. Yes.
I don't think we need to go back to Las Vegas. I think we
Nope.
should go to Kentucky. Those are both SMI tracks. Um, I threw a lot at you there, but that's where I'm at kind of broadly.
No, I completely agree, and it kind of ties into what a lot of the conversation was for me on my side of it. Of my work last week is that Kansas was the first intermediate oval, true intermediate, since Charlotte in May, right? Like that is a very long time for what used to be the core track type. You go back 10 years ago or so, there was 18 of these things on the schedule
Yeah,
essentially.
we were sick of them.
Yeah, every other week we were going, and you're going to Charlotte 3 times a year with All-Star Race, but it's like we got too far away from it. Then we found this golden car that works on that track type, and now we need to revert back. But one thing that I really noticed was in the middle of the schedule, and maybe this is a scheduling issue. It felt like we were going the road courses every other week, and then adding in Pocono, which kind of operates like a road course in terms of strategy, and we weren't seeing the best track type, and the fans were getting really displeasured with the product because it was Pocono and Michigan and road course 2 and then Indianapolis, and yet our best track or best track type wasn't on the schedule. It wasn't something we were seeing. We weren't getting a really good Kansas or Charlotte or Kentucky potentially. So I agree. I think dropping maybe a couple road courses, getting a couple more just straight, Kentucky will work. I'm not picky.
Do we need Circuit of the Americas? And I've been there, wonderful facility, and I know we lost to Texas, and we want to
No.
serve that state. Do we need Circuit of
No.
the Americas? Maybe that could be the Kentucky date because that's an SMI lease.
And how
track.
much are they paying, right? How much
Yeah,
investment do they have to make that happen? It's probably a conversation they would have to have internally, but for me, no, there's no prestige with it, and that's the issue. I love Circuit Americas because I'm a huge F1 fan. I love the facility. I love that we have it in America because that was built at a time when F1 left our country. They completely left it,
yeah.
and they built this track, and it really kind of saved F1 in America in a lot of respects. So I have a lot of love for that circuit, but it doesn't. I will say the race earlier this year was fantastic. So I don't want to completely say, hey, the racing product's not great. That battle for the lead, clean racing, that was one of the best races of the year. People didn't love it because it was a road course to an extent, and they just will never give road courses, their due. But I kind of agree. I don't think there's enough prestige to make it justifiable. I think going to Chicago made sense because it's a huge market. It's different. It's fresh. I think San Diego will be fun next year. I think it's a one-off, but it's different, right? We're trying
Yeah.
something. We're seeing how it
In
goes.
Mexico, listen, I'm wearing my Mexico lanyard because I was like one of 3 people that really, really loved that trip, and I was very vocal about it on social media. Um, as much as I would love to go back to Mexico City, I'm kind of glad that was a one and done,
Yeah.
purely from the standpoint of let's go do the next thing. At the end of the day, I tell people this all the time. I like a healthy number of road course races. And by healthy, I mean maybe 3 or 4. 3 road courses, 1 street course. But NASCAR is oval racing, right? Like
Mhm.
we need our half miles. I love that Bowman Gray is back in some capacity. I'm glad we're going back to Wilkesboro, but 1 miles, mile and a half. I cannot believe that I'm now a Nashville super speedway truther. But that's been really good with this car too. And I've really
Interesting.
enjoyed those races. And at the end of the day, I tell people, and this is like me being snippy and snarky, but IMSA's over there. Right? Like it's already bad enough that we're racing, NASCAR with a sports car.
Yep.
But the real IMSA sports car racing is over there. And if you enjoy that, well, you've got 18 events or whatever it is over there. IMSA's there, not here. This isn't IMSA.
Yeah, I agree. So you lean on bringing the oval back then?
Oh
We think
yeah, uh, not
it's such a
now.
hard answer.
Is it? I don't think if this was 6 months ago, I would have said yeah. But
Mhm.
I think losing Chicago,
Right.
Mexico City, and the fact that we're getting Joliet back, I can live with it. And I think I'll say this: I enjoy again schedule diversity. I cannot. It would be so intellectually dishonest of me to advocate 5 minutes ago that we have too much schedule duplication still, and then also for me to say we need to do the Charlotte Oval
Add it
twice a
back.
year. That
Right.
makes me a hypocrite. So like
It
I can live with
does.
it for one more year. Um, I would love to see that date be taken to some other places. I like having a Charlotte Roval and a Charlotte Oval. I just think that there are a lot of different places. I would love to see the Cup Series still go. Like I said, bring back Kentucky, Nashville Fairgrounds is still something I'm not giving up on, and I still think there's a pathway to go every other year. Super Speedway, short track. I think that's the plan. There's a lot of
Interesting.
cool places we can take the Cup Series.
That's cool. I didn't know alternating it was the option that they're going with. So
The
that's
contract,
cool.
the proposal that's out there now is that there would be a national touring event at the fairgrounds every year, but
Mhm.
the Cup Series date would alternate back and forth. Super Speedway,
Gotcha.
short track.
So like maybe you go trucks and then cup type deal or
Yeah.
Xfinity or whatever they want. That makes sense. That's cool. Okay. Well, and obviously like, I feel like Rockingham coming back was a success this year with Xfinity and trucks. I do think in the right markets, the right tracks that we can take those series and sell out and do good business. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's cool. I have not been paying attention to it because it was one of those things. So I lived in the Nashville area for a little while and I used to go to the fairgrounds just as a kid. And I I always looked at them putting, bringing it back, so to speak, as like a far-fetched idea. I didn't think it was going to happen. And then it feels like we've been talking about forever at this point. And through the process of it, Wilkesboro went from not existing to being a full-fledged track again. And Rockingham's come back and all that. And obviously that's due to the government money that
That's
our,
another place, by the way. Like you could make a case that if Rockingham has another strong Xfinity truck weekend, why not Cup?
Mhm.
And that would have been preposterous 10 years ago. But I think one positive of NASCAR falling back towards the niche, they were the second most popular spectator sport 20 years ago behind the NFL. And so we were too big for our short track britches. But we're not anymore. We are
Not bigger and much right
19
now.
yeah, well, we are 1995 NASCAR
Mhm.
in a lot of ways. We've kind of reverted back to where we were pre-boom period. And so there's nothing to really stop us from going to Wilkesboro and Rockingham. And man, I wish Memphis was in better shape. I mean, I think
Yeah.
the track itself is still there, but the stands are gone. But God,
Mhm.
I would advocate going back to Memphis. I would talk about going to um, South Boston for an all-star race that's owned by the Mattioli family that owns Pocono. So it's already owned by a current Cup Series track
Okay.
owner.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Stafford just put in safer barriers. We could do that for an all-star race. We are so far off the trail here, but like all of this to say,
Well, that's the point of the show, right? Is to get as far
it
off the
is.
trail as
Yeah,
possible.
we are off the rails. I'll say this: I think that there's a lot of places we can go. I don't want the duplication, and I would only like it if we had 3 to 4 road and/or street course races a year. Um, and however the schedule is pieced together that is intellectually consistent to those 3 points, sign me up.
Cool. I like that.
Mosport. We should be going to Mosport or Montreal, Canada.
Yeah, I still don't understand why we're not going back there. Real quick, because I haven't done this. I'm not doing a very good job at the YouTube thing. Subscribe to the channel real quick. If this thing takes off, you'll want to be here for our future episodes. Our plan right now is, if this goes well, to do this every Sunday night or Monday morning, depending on how timing works out with Matt, to do this show and have some fun with it. So subscribe to the channel. Make sure you're here. Leave a comment, like it, all the stuff that every YouTuber is supposed to do 3 minutes into the video, not 32. But with that said, I think we've covered most of the Cup race. I don't know. I mean, we can talk about.
No. This is crazy. This is insane, and this goes back to our point about how this playoff conversation is seeped into everything. There are 3 words that, in good faith, we have not really said 33 minutes into this show, and those 3 words are Shane Van Gisbergen. It's another SVG road course, domination, and in many ways that would be the story in any other universe in which it's not a round of 12 cutoff race, is that rookie Shane Van Gisbergen has won 5 Cup races this year. 5.
I don't feel like he's a rookie when it comes to road courses, but yeah. I mean, it's very unique situation, right? Like, this is not something that you could ever predict that happen outside of this particular circumstance, which, again, realistically, his existence in the Cup Series only exists, or he's only here because the playoffs exist, because he can go get those wins to get his team into the top 16 in points. He is worth a lot of money to Trackhouse because he can get them into the playoffs every single year. So this isn't surprising. I don't think anyone's technically surprised by him winning 5 road course races. He obviously stomped the field and earned it in every which way. Is the dominance a bad thing? Is it something that we need to concern ourselves with? Like, geez, every time we go to road course, he's going to beat him by 20 seconds, and we have to pretend like the battle for second is important? Or like, how do we, as fans and people around sport, accept it, move on? Because I don't think anyone's catching him. I don't think they're going to make up the time.
I think the thing that's really impressive about what he's doing right now is that I spent a 5-minute diatribe earlier in the show lamenting the parity that we have. Spec drivers driving spec cars with spec SMT and spec personalities. That does not apply to Shane on road courses. It's actually really, really remarkable how close the competition is in the Cup Series right now in general, and that when we go to Mexico and we go to downtown Chicago and Watkins Glen and now here, where was his other win?
All of them.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. I think all but one, right? He's winning by, for the most part, like double-digit margins.
Yeah.
10, 15, 17, 16. These are not just, Shane is really good at road racing. He's really elite. And by the way, I remember after his last win, I guess it was the Glen, I had people suggest to me that, well, this is the problem with our current system is that, well, it's going to encourage every team owner to drop in a road course ace to do what Trackhouse is doing. And I don't think
No.
fans, with all due respect to really smart race fans, I don't think there's a lot of like casual to semi enthusiastic NASCAR fans who understand that Shane is not just a road course
He's
guy.
special.
He's the road course
Yeah.
guy. Like everywhere he's gone, whether it's been supercars or running the Rolex 24, he's the man. And he comes over and wins a cup race in his debut. Now, granted, the next gen is based heavily on the old generation of supercar that he dominated in. And so there's some of that too. But keep in mind, like some of his peers have come over and other really great road racers have come over driving this car,
They
and they're
struggle.
still not as good as him. He's one of one. And I would encourage all NASCAR fans, even someone like me, who's a short track guy, who is an oval guy, appreciate the fact that Shane Van Gisbergen is one of a kind, and that even Marcus Ambrose and Juan Montoya, and I thought Juan Montoya does not get enough credit for his NASCAR career. Even they have not taken to NASCAR the way that Shane has. And oh, by the way, he's coming around on ovals too. Got his first top 10, starting to race in the top 10 with greater regularity.
Mm-hmm.
He's qualifying better because he's a playoff guy, so he gets to qualify at the
Yeah.
end of all these weeks. But man, like Shane is going to be really good in a year or two once he puts this entire schedule together.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's you said the right part with him is he is different than all the other ones. It's not just that he has the road racing background. There's a lot of guys that have that get in a stock car or it's not a stock car anymore. They get drive Xfinity Series, drive trucks, whatever.
All the parts are in stock. That's a stock car. It's got your stock clips and your stock brakes, and you go to Walmart and you can get them all in stock. That's a stock car.
The point I was saying is that he is different. He's very, very different, and it is impressive to watch. I think it reminds me a lot of F1 to a degree, where it's like when a team and a driver are hooked up, they're kind of untouchable, and you just got to kind of respect that dominance. It reminds me of like 2020 Harvick, where you're just like, this is unbelievable. Like this dude's just every week contending for the win, and obviously it's a smaller sample size because it's just road courses, but you're right. His second half of the season on ovals has been significantly better. Like it's night and day from what he was the first half. Kansas was a good run. Richmond was a really good run. He's showing the ability to get up there.
He was ripping the fence at darn Richmond.
Yep. He was doing things that other people weren't doing and making time.
There.
Yeah. So I think that I'm excited to see if he can take that next step. And it gets overlooked. Rookies don't do good. Any rookie. It doesn't matter if it's Chase Elliott and William Byron. Go look at their rookie stats. They struggled the first couple of years, all the way up to what we're going to see with Zilich next year, right? Rookies are going to struggle in the Cup Series because everyone's really damn good. And this car also is tricky. It's not naturally what oval drivers drive, right? So a lot of rookies struggle. He is adapting at a pretty high rate, I feel like. And you can compare him to other rookies or second-year drivers right now. And I feel like he's doing as good as most of them are doing, if not better to a degree. And I do think, in a couple of years, he could be not just he made the playoffs because he's a road course ringer, but he could be a challenger depending on how the format lays out in the future. Yeah, but he can go further. He can do more. He can be more successful in totality because I do think it's all coming together for him. And he's doing it at a very, very high rate because he's only been in the U.S. for like 2 years, right? So it's very impressive overall.
The thing that I think is going to be interesting next year is that he's going to be way better on the ovals. And I'm curious two things. One, how much does having Connor Zilich, who is also really special, take away from his road course success? Because we've already seen it in small sample size. he's just as good on a road course in a Cup car right now as Shane.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that given a full year, I think he's going to win some road course races next year too. And as we get more data on Shane and the way that he drives, it's hard because he doesn't allow the camera on his feet anymore. He doesn't want to give away his
Smart.
toe tapping skills. How much, because it's inevitable, right? Like everyone's going to study him and they're going to get closer to where he's at. So how much closer to Shane does the field get, and how much of having Connor in every single road course race next year also eroded some of his success? And then it's a conversation about his oval acumen. And I think, it's going to be interesting to watch those three things kind of converge next year.
Yeah, definitely. I think even like today, there were glimpses of like he may not win this race. Short run speeds.
Was there?
I think on short runs, yes. If we got late cautions, I think he could have been under threat for sure.
Yeah.
Now, long run speeds.
Larson said he was toying with us, and Shane says, "Oh, I don't feel that way." And remember, like, we're not even having this conversation about, Shane and Kyle trading pain and kind of using each other up a little bit. If it wasn't for the thing that happened on pit road, which was not Shane's fault, but he just happened to catch Austin Dillon leaving pit row right in front of him, and that cost him 2-3 seconds, right? And he had to go back through and pass the leaders again. I don't think that was purely a matter of, Kyle was getting closer to Shane's level of performance. Kyle had a great race.
Yeah.
And I don't know that Kyle.
I guess my point was more when we had those restarts, in the middle of stage 2, and Larson and Bell both got past Shane, and Shane was running third for a little bit of time, and he wasn't just marching back past them.
That was
if
strategy.
It's Connor Zillich.
That was all Shane saving his stuff, and I think that's where Shane schools him. I think that here's the thing. I think what happens on those restarts is everyone thinks we have to go after him right now. If we do not get our track position, we do not have a shot at beating him. And I think Shane is so confident in his tire conservation.
Well, he should be.
And he should be. And his ability to pass. He's like, go have at it. Like you're going to die and my tires are going to live. And this is going to be a non-contest whenever I then decide to go. And so I don't know that that's just a lack of like short run performance. I think that's just Shane saying,
you're probably right. He's playing safe, but if Zillich is the guy he's doing that with, and maybe we're speculating, or I'm speculating, is it different? Can he be challenged?
In the series, right? We've seen them two play the cat and mouse game, and I think Connor's way more aggressive than Shane. Shane is way more meticulous, and it will be interesting to see, in equal equipment, what that battle looks like. I still think Shane is probably better there.
All right, well, let's spin this forward. Round of 8, you got 3 races here. Could be interesting, could not be. Vegas, Talladega, Martinsville. I feel like Talladega has been actually rather boring the last couple of races there. It's not exactly been this crazy, chaotic, crash-filled event. So that's not something I'm necessarily leaning into. Martinsville's obviously been a track that passing's hard. It's really strategy-based and track position. And I don't know if we're necessarily going to get the wildness that a lot of past races 5, 6, 7 years ago that we've kind of built in our mind that we would get there. Vegas feels like where a lot of teams are going to focus on. They're like, if we can win Vegas, we don't have to worry about that nonsense. We advance and you kind of start prepping. But aside from that, someone's going to go win in advance at Vegas. But when you look at Denny Hamlin to Chase Briscoe, it's pretty tight. We're only separated by 22 points for those 7 drivers. Logano's a little bit further back, but I feel like everyone has to be at the top of their game here for these next 3 races to advance. You're either having to win a race or kind of be close to perfect considering how good all these drivers are at Vegas, at Martinsville, and Talladega being a wild card. You kind of have to execute at a very, very high level to get to that championship race. Obviously, crowning someone with a 1-race championship is gross, but I feel like these next 3 races, we get the best of the best, the absolute best drivers all advance, and it's going to be quite the show to see who does make it to the championship 4.
Yeah, a clean sweep of Hendrick, Gibbs, and Penske drivers, right? And so it's the cream of the crop, as Randy Savage used to say, the Macho Man. I am reminded last year, this round last season, where sometimes people say, and here we are talking about the playoff formats, pros and cons. It's like, well, how can you justify the final 4 when Bell didn't make it, Hamlin didn't make it, and Larson didn't make it? And the answer was, well, Reddick, Blaney, and Byron, and those guys won. They won, and that was that. And so I look at it kind of a similar way here. The potential of what could happen at Vegas. You know, Josh Berry won there in the spring, and so you think, hey, does Penske have something there? Like, it would be so true to his form that Joey finds some way to get through that Roval, right? And then they go to the 1.5 miles the next week in Vegas, and
I want it to happen so bad.
yeah, I'm a storyline guy. I like the storyline. I'm not saying I'm rooting for or against anybody, but I will say that I appreciate Joey's swagger, because you know that Joey knows that people root against him because of the way that he's won his championships, and so I want him in the Final 4. I do. I'm rooting for him to at least make the Final 4, because I think the Final 4 is always more fun when he's in it, because he will trash talk a little bit in ways that other guys don't. But like, he could go back and win this race again, and we're having the same conversation we had last year. And so we go back and look at the guys who are below the cut line. Briscoe, been super fast, super competitive in this playoff run.
Yep.
He's below the cut line right now. Bell won, those 3 races in a row in the winter, spring earlier this year. Chase has a win recently now. I love this round because all 8 teams are really, really good. And again, this is me being generally pro playoff. All that matters for the next 3 races, and I hate that Talladega is a part of this, but it is, so whatever. But go in. Like, if you are as good as you say that you are, if you're a great championship team, you're not going to prove that by finishing 7th the next 3 weeks. You prove it by going out and winning. And so I look forward to seeing, especially Vegas and Martinsville, because Talladega is whatever. If you're that good, if you really believe that you're a championship caliber team, go validate it. And I think that at least for 2 of these races, the results will be dependent on that. I hate that Talladega is a part of this. I get it from a drama standpoint, and I like drama and storylines. That's a gimmick too far for me, right? Like, it's the round of 8, and it should be about performance and execution. And I'm so afraid that it's going to come down to, Martinsville. The points calculation will be based on who got crashed in the big one at Talladega. That's gross. That sucks. That sucks more than a 1 race finale.
Let me ask you this. Let me play devil's advocate then on Talladega, just for the sake of it. I think the race is going to suck personally, but we see the fuel saving aspect of these super speedways now. It's kind of the biggest factor that's going on. It makes the beginning of these races really boring for me. It's obviously just riding around fuel saving, but it is an execution battle. These teams are having to execute. They're having to gain track position. You're seeing different strategies. I thought what the Toyotas did a couple years ago was really, really good, where they pitted early and just went all out. That wasn't until they wrecked themselves. But we've seen different strategies through this process. We've seen guys go all out, really save hard, and all this. Are we not enjoying this aspect of it, this execution aspect of the super speedways, because they haven't been crash heavy?
By the way, don't get me wrong. I enjoy that. My concern and my consternation is not the fuel saving, because me being kind of it's funny, I consider myself a racing purist, but I'm pro playoff. But to me, it's like, here's the checkered flag and here's the green flag, and what you have to do to get here first from this starting position. And to me, that's just math. And so if it means that you burn less fuel, so you spend less time on pit road, that's racing. That's racing. Right? That's inherent to racing. I don't like, and you're fair to point out that super speedway racing actually has started to get a little cleaner. And I think a lot of that is too, when you're going 50% throttle, I don't know, maybe that's a part of it. I do not want to get to a point at Martinsville where someone had a third place finish and a third place finish, but they were also crashed out in the big one, and that was the difference. That's
Yeah.
gross. Not. It was something that driver didn't even. This is what it reminds me of. Jeff
That's
Gordon.
the playoffs, though, right?
Yeah, Jeff Gordon in 2014, and this is before the playoff points fixed this. Before you had the buffer built in, but I think Jeff Gordon finished second at Martinsville to start the round of 8. He had the crash with Keselowski at Texas, and then he finished second at Phoenix, and it wasn't enough because of what happened with that one crash. It's not totally the same, but if you generally execute, and there's one spot that will go in on points for sure, depending on who wins the other races. I just do not want the Final Four being decided by who did not get involved in a crash. That's a bridge too far for even me, the pro playoff proponent.
Sure. Anything
and it's not because of the fuel saving. I think the fuel saving is fine. It's great. It's a technical challenge.
Sure. Okay. Anything you want to touch on Xfinity truck? I mean, we haven't talked about those races at all. Late models. You were in Martinsville a week ago.
Yeah.
No,
I mean, I'll say this. I don't know. There's the Austin Hill thing, right? Like that's one big one, and it was always going to be a really tall task for Austin to overcome this. And I'll say this. This is what I'll say about Austin. I know that he's a polarizing guy. He's not a popular driver. One, I think that Austin Hill is one of our best personalities. He does not give 100%. A shit. He doesn't care what you think about how he races, how he carries himself. He's actually a good guy. But he's kind of like Joey in the sense that when he puts that helmet on, he's a different guy. He's outside of the car. He's a family man. He's Big Daddy, right? And he gets in the car and he's a mean SOB. And people don't like that, and that's fine. But that's also a great personality.
When did they stop liking that, by the way?
I don't know. It's weird, right? Because like once upon a time, that's the sort of character. I don't know. He drives for RCR.
Right. I mean, not even Earnhardt parallels. Like you can Jimmy Spencer parallel it. Like you don't have to just pigeonhole them to the one guy that everyone talks about. Like that was half the drivers 25 years ago that everyone clamors is the best generation in NASCAR. You have one guy showing actual personality who's kind of a prick to his rivals, doesn't care. He will send it. Yeah. And we hit now. I think it's ridiculous. Listen, my pinned tweet is something where I said Austin Hill's like, fuck him. I don't care, Yeah. But is that bad? Like he's super entertaining. He has given us multiple moments of like, what are you doing?
And by the way, it's total bullshit that his suspension resulted in the loss of all of his playoff points. That was a result of what happened between Larson and NASCAR and everything that happened after the Indy 500 last year. And that they were so mad and so offended that Larson and Hendrick chose the Indianapolis 500 that they needed to have a knee-jerk reaction to make sure that never happened again. And so, well, if you miss a race, then you lose all of your playoff points. And that also meant, as a byproduct, that if you get suspended, therefore you lose all of your playoff points. And I just hate living in a world where NASCAR has to interject themselves into what should have been, the garage. That if Eric Almirola and Austin Hill had a problem with how they raced each other at Indianapolis and someone wrecked someone, then get out of the car and punch them. And it's not a $75,000, or in the case of the Xfinity Series, a $50,000 fine.
Well, you're not punching Austin Hill.
Out. You're probably not punching Austin Hill. Ask, was it Myatt Snyder that found that out the hard way a couple of years ago?
I think so.
You're probably not going to fight, Big Daddy and win. But I hate that we have a guy that shows personality. Now, you shouldn't use cars as a weapon. I'm not justifying that. But by the way, in a universe where NASCAR isn't going to fine you $75,000, maybe you don't use your car as a weapon. Maybe And Austin Hill has shown a willingness to do this historically. If he gets mad at you, well, fine, I'll get out of the car and I'll punch you. But you can't do that either. So you can't
Yeah.
go and punch the guy that you were wronged by.
You can't do anything.
You can't do anything. And now we've lost a compelling championship format or championship implication storyline because of it. And it just makes me hot. It makes me so mad that we have this guy with personality that it was kind of unfair. Like, I know I hate that word, but it was unfair because he was collateral damage to what happened between Larson and NASCAR a year before. It has nothing to do with this.
I didn't realize we were going to go down a path, but yeah, I mean, I think there should be a punishment. Although part of me is like, who cares if you rear hook someone? We watched Kyle Busch completely wreck Stenhouse in the All-Star race, right? That's what led to I mean, he dumped him like completely head on into a wall. That's not an issue, but the punch is an issue. And then we see guys rear hooking him, and that's a suspension. And I'm kind of lost at where the line is. And this is a whole nother conversation. Like, Kyle Busch should have been fined for that move or whatever. Like, there should have been no punishment.
He was fined. He was fined. He was fined 5 knuckles off the fist of Ricky Stenhouse.
Which I love.
Me too. And
everyone did.
By the way, I got on a rant about this last week, or might have been this week. NASCAR is trying to come up with all these different taglines and new marketing initiatives. And I said this earlier in the week. I want the initiative where we're not punishing people for saying "give me a hell yeah" and stomping a mud hole.
Yeah.
So there's just a lot of things here. We spend too much time talking about the championship format and not enough time talking about all the other ways that we're trying to squash out being interesting. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. gave NASCAR the most mainstream play it had received in years, since probably that really bad thing that happened at Talladega 5 years ago. That was the most mainstream play that the sport has gotten. ESPN, Fox News, CNN, all the big sports blogs. And as opposed to giving him a bonus, they fined him $75,000. And we are still paying for all of this.
And he did it in such a good way. It wasn't like egregious. He went up and said, "Listen, man, this is how I'm going toe to toe with you. We're men. We're like," he didn't sucker punch someone. He didn't attack someone.
He gave Kyle 5 tries to say the right answer. Hey, man, I'm mad about this. I'm mad about this. I'm mad about this. I'm mad about this. And Kyle kept saying, no. It's like, wrong answer.
Yeah. So
that's peak NASCAR. By the way, NASCAR was built on this, 1979. And there's a fight on the backstretch. They know they have lost. That's the literal reason
they shove it down our throats every year.
Yes.
They shove it down.
We're too whatever.
Yeah. There's a lot, and I think more than the playoffs, more than a lot. I think there's a lot of these things that are kind of what are frustrating me as a fan. And we can spend more time on our frustrations with NASCAR, but it's things like this where it's like Austin Hill's entire season was impacted because he couldn't throw a punch. Yeah, because he's not allowed to do the one thing he probably wants to do.
Yes. And by the way, tying it in full circle, last year at Martinsville, Christian Eckes and Taylor Gray, right? And what happened on the last lap there? It was, "I'm really, really mad at you, and I want you to know it, sir." And we're probably going to have a situation at Martinsville, especially in the Xfinity Series, where it seems like every year there's some last lap dive bomb to where, we should let these guys sort it out amongst themselves. But knowing that Big Brother's watching you, you just have to walk up and say, "I'm very unhappy with you."
Well, let me ask you this, because you may have an opinion on this or know something. Sammy Smith and Taylor Gray walked up to Smith, had a conversation. There was nothing else more than that. A conversation outside the door of the medical facility at Martinsville earlier this year after Sammy Smith did a bonsai move.
Yeah.
And they were fined for it, for a conversation.
Yeah.
Why? What was the egregious action there? And why does NASCAR feel the need to step in on that stuff? What is that? That makes no sense.
We're going to have a state of the sport press conference like we do every year, with probably Phelps and O'Donnell is what it usually is, and that's actually my one question, because I feel very passionate about this, and I think that they're meddling in garage affairs at the same time telling us publicly that they want to be unapologetic and bold and brash, um, are contradictions.
Yes.
And I don't have an answer. That's actually one of the things that I want to ask Phelps and O'Donnell. And while I have their text numbers, I'm not going to text them that because that's inappropriate. Um, but I have that question because it's
Yeah.
permeating into so many different things that is hurting our ability to capitalize on conflict and rivalries. And that's what it comes down to me, is like, it's not about Austin Hill. It's not about Christian Eckes and Sammy Smith and Taylor Gray or Eric Almirola, any of their specific things. It's about, or Kyle Busch or Ricky Stenhouse. It's about, we keep having opportunities to grow, to make people care about our personalities and our rivalries. And NASCAR feels the need to interject themselves into that conversation in a way that is not additive to growth. And it makes me very mad.
I agree.
And I
I
want to know
want
why.
So I'm get that answer for us. Maybe we can get that answer and do a podcast on it. I think this is a good kind of wrapping up point. It did a full hour. That was fantastic. I really, really enjoyed the show. I think for a science experiment, it didn't go too bad.
No,
So any last thoughts? Anything you want to get out there before we head on out of here?
no, I try to enjoy this round because I don't know what we're going to have, and whether you love the format or dislike the format, I think there's pros and cons to both. And I would just, it's funny, here we are talking about the format again. I've enjoyed this format, and I think this could be the last year in its current incarnation. And I just want everyone to really have good faith, intellectual thoughts about what about this works and doesn't work. Because I just remember last year at Homestead seeing those four guys who needed to win, and they were all blocked out, right? Like Reddick won, but Hamlin didn't, Larson didn't. I forget who else was part of that battle. I think we could see something similar, and I just want everyone to ask: is this better or worse than having a two-driver, three-driver Latford style system where we talk about what? And I just think this round is everything that I love about this format, and I can't wait. I wish Talladega wasn't part of it. But I think we're going to have a lot of interesting things to talk about on this podcast moving forward.
Perfect. We need to have the great playoff debate. That needs to be a focus for us at some point because
I
I think
told
we
you
get
that I want to get Mark Martin on the phone, and he's a good friend. And I think this platform, I'm pro playoff, he's anti. We talk about it on the phone sometimes. Now that we're all being very public about some of the things that we feel, we need to have the great playoff debate with Mark Martin, and I think he would be receptive
that'd
to
be
it
good.
too.
That'd be good. All right. Well, let's try to put that together because I think that will really move the needle, and it'll be a fun conversation because we can not just cover the Latford versus what we have now, but it can cover different ideas, different concepts, different ways to do it, and then we can get our hopes up on something, and then NASCAR will do something else in 3 weeks that'll piss us off even more. But
remember, NASCAR TV has no real say. TV's not the one making this call.
Good to know.
That's what they
Awesome, Matt.
say.
Well, I appreciate you jumping on with me. I've had a blast. I think it's really cool. I hopefully we can keep doing them. If you are still watching the show, please subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment, like the video, do all that fun stuff. I don't know where all of it is. We need all that help to kind of build everything up and make sure more people are checking it out. And the bigger it gets, maybe we can do some really cool things with it. So thanks, Matt, again for jumping on. Thanks, guys, for watching it, and we will catch you next time, hopefully.